Access Hampton and Harris with Bobbi Roquemore, where the world of sports meets the mic and the hammer of the law.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Hampton and Harris. I'm Rickey Hampton with my great friend John Harris, coming to you on a Thursday evening. Jenny, we got a great show planned for this evening, and our great friend Bobbi Roquemore is going to be joining us shortly. But Jenny, we got some big things coming that you're a part of, and our special guest is a part of. So I'm going to let you take it from here, brother, and give the introduction.
Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Excited to be here. I want to introduce good friend, colleague, Antoinette Brown. We are working together on an exciting project that will debut next week at the Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco, the Cleveland Summit 2, harkening back to the original Cleveland Summit in 1967. We're doing a television program on that. We have actually 4 shows that will be coming up. And we're also working on a documentary about the great John Wooten. Antoinette also is with Presidio Consulting, her company. She leads it. Presidio is an emerging strategic consulting firm which builds meaningful partnerships across the sports, business, and nonprofit sector. She specializes in connecting brands and mission-driven organizations with athletes and sports entities. Antoinette, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. God, that's a great intro. Thank you.
Hey, why don't you talk a little bit about next week, the summit, how we all got together, and then talk a little bit about Presidio.
Yes.
Was it Presidio or Presidio?
Presidio.
Yes,
Presidio. Okay. Yep, Presidio Consulting. Well, how we all came together was just our love, definitely, of John Wooten and John Harris. I think we came together through just the connection of you and Adam wanting to do or starting to write and produce John's documentary, right?
Correct.
And then having John Wooten so passionate about, you know what, let's recreate the 1967 Cleveland Summit 2. Let's bring the guys back together again and leading into the Hall of Fame week. So it was just a tremendous experience and just so filled with love and dedication and overwhelming. It was just such a blessing to work with John for one, and all of us to come together and hear the testimony, and especially the stories as it resonated this day and age. So great experience, and it was a wild ride, wouldn't you say, John?
It's been less than a year. It's incredible. It's been less than a year that we've met and worked on these projects. And talk a little bit about, Antoinette, just what people that are fortunate enough to be there in San Francisco next week during Super Bowl week, what they will be seeing.
Absolutely. So with the combination of the 4 panels that we did in Cleveland, they will be able to see on Friday, and I think the date is February 6th.
Yes.
If I'm correct. They'll be
Correct.
able to see a compilation of all 4 shows put together, the best of the best. So the intro with Jimmy Haslam, a panel with Senior VP Troy Vincent from the NFL League, Peter John Baptiste, and all the other different panelists coming together and really just talking about how social justice is relevant today and what we need to do to move forward, bringing athletes together, what having all of these guys back in 1967 meant, and what these athletes today need to do to have their voices still mean something. And the fact that they are, if you will, the voices of today, and that they have a strong opinion, and they're leaders, you know, a responsibility, if you will, to their community, and just doing the right thing. So I think what people will take coming out of the screening is they will be inspired and still see that the message from 1967 is still relevant today, and that we are so lucky to have John Wooten still be a part of this legacy, and that he still carries the torch and wants to move on and push through. So it'll be great.
And we got on the screen here the information for the Cleveland Summit too, and
Yes.
I don't know if you can get that with your do a screenshot of that invite there. But where could people go to find it if they aren't able to get it off this screen that we have up?
We can
For the QR code. For the QR
Yep.
code.
Yep, there's a QR code. So what we can do is I can send you on the chat. I'll just grab a chat, the QR
Absolutely.
code, and I can put it in the chat here.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yep, happy to.
That's fine. I'll tell you guys, this is a great time to have this, considering what's going on in our country today. And we all know Black athletes have always carried a dual role of speaking out or having the platform to address societal issues. And we were certainly blessed. I was certainly blessed, and my generation was certainly blessed to have Muhammad Ali taking on issues regarding race in America, regarding justice in America, and he was fearless for us. And of course, Ali is part of the original Cleveland Summit.
And the fascinating part of that story is, I'm not going to go out on a limb, but really without the Cleveland Summit, we might not have known Muhammad Ali the way we know him. These major athletes throwing their support behind him influenced a lot, as far as Muhammad Ali down the line, being able to get his heavyweight champion belt back, then becoming known, around the world as one of the great humanitarians of all time. I know Mr. Wooten talks about that a lot, John Wooten, that was a huge moment in history, in sports and in American history. It was just a very incredible time. And to have John Wooten at 89 still here. Unfortunately, most of the people you see in that picture are not here anymore.
Yes.
And I think that's also a very important thing to recognize, that he's up in the top right corner in the dark suit. That's John Wooten back in the day.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And if we can also mention, at the time in this photo, the youngest member of these men coming together was Lou Alcindor. So what people don't know is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as we all know him today. He was the youngest member that was called to Cleveland. And what Jim Brown, in the story that we were told, John Harris, and correct me if I'm wrong, the story that we were told is that John Wooten, Jim Brown, and the other athletes saw something in Lou Alcindor and brought him there, and felt that it was so important that he be a part of this, if you will, meeting of the minds, and that he attended this Cleveland Summit. Is that correct?
Yep, that's it. It's amazing combination of sports, history, social relevance. In the far left corner is Carl Stokes, who became the first Black mayor of a major American city in the U.S. In Cleveland. Yeah, his campaign manager was none other than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. People don't know that. Spent a lot of time in Cleveland. So there's a lot of amazing connections between sports and politics and society during that time in the 60s. And Cleveland was a hotbed for all of it.
Hey, let me just jump in. I'm sorry, Antoinette. I just want to jump in and welcome everybody to Hampton and Harris with Bobbi Roquemore. I'm Rickey Hampton with John Harris. Our special guest tonight is Miss Antoine Brown. We'll discuss the upcoming special screening of the Cleveland Summit 2 and get the guys together again. Antoine, I apologize for cutting you off.
Oh, wait, I forgot. Antoinette, her father is the great Willie Brown, People remember the cornerback for the
Oh,
Oakland
my
Raiders.
goodness. Yes.
Yes. So she has an extensive sports background.
That is fantastic. And you know, guys, you look at these men on this picture today, man, they had a lot to lose back then. It wasn't like these guys weren't making life-changing money uh, at that time. Of course, America frowned upon uh, us. This is 1967, and the height of the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War. The country was in as much of an upheaval then as it is today.
Yep.
These guys put themselves on the line.
What's the story after that, Mr. How many times Mr. Wooten told us the story that he and Jim Brown were best buds, BFFs, and Jim had John, Mr. Wooten, I can't call him John, Mr. Wooten, call everybody. All the athletes you see in that picture, all the people, he called them literally. And the thing he keeps telling, he tells me like at least once a week. Everybody that he called, not one person asked how much money I'm going to have to pay. I can't do this, dude. It could affect my career. That's the thing that stuck with him forever.
Yes.
That there was no pushback from anybody. Only, when do I need to be there?
Yep. When do I need to be there? And we will be there. We will be there. Yes, absolutely.
Rick, let's let after that tell us a little bit about Presidio, how that came about.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely. And it's funny, we're talking about these players, these athletes back in the day not making significant amount of money, if you will. So it's as I kind of handled my father's business and have been around a lot of athletes in my life, whether on and off the court, retired, still trying to figure out what they want to do after they retire. I was thinking about, especially with my father, he would sign autographs and sign HOF, Hall of Famer. And I was like, Dad, you can't just sign HOF for everybody. You got to monetize that. Now, mind you, I have a marketing and sales background and strategic partnerships. So I know the value, and I was also around the younger guys that he would be around coaching. And they were getting these partnerships, getting these deal brands and everything. So Presidio came, developed, just basically helping these athletes, recognizing their value and helping them to establish strategic partnerships, these brands, these nonprofits, and really showing them that their value is worth something. So having the experience in the WNBA, I was formerly Chief of Staff, VP of Operations, and working with the legends, so the great Cheryl Miller, the great Lisa Leslie, showing them that they still have value as these WNBA young ladies are being drafted right out of college. They're getting these NIL deals. And these legends are like, well, wait a minute, young lady, you're getting all this NIL money, but I'm the one who started it. I'm the one who paved the way for you to be successful. So I just have a passion for it, the legends, if you will, the legends of the game, as I like to call it, and just show them that there is life after the game. So that's how Presidio kind of started. So just helping them know their value and their worth, and just looking for opportunities or helping them serve as ambassadors, if you will, with other brands. So that's it.
Hey, and we want to welcome our co-host, Bobbi Roquemore, in. Bobbi, how you doing, darling? Can you
I'm
hear
fine,
us?
and you? Thank you. It's good to see you, Antoinette.
Hello there. How are you?
That's right, everybody. You guys
Hi.
met in Cleveland
Yeah, we
last year.
met in Cleveland, as you recall.
Yes.
Hello
there.
Yes, and we also didn't realize it at the time, but we also had met during Super Bowl week in New Orleans.
Absolutely.
Hey, Bobbi, we talked when Antoinette first came on about the upcoming Cleveland Summit. Cleveland Summit 2, get the guys together again. That's coming up Super Bowl weekend in San Francisco. Uh, your thoughts on the Cleveland Summit, considering your roots and connections to Cleveland?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the photo is one of the iconic photos in sports history, American history, knowing everything that came together with that. Jim Brown, Mr. Wooten. Cleveland has always been at the forefront of civil rights. The first major the first mayor of a major black a major American city was black, and his name was Carl Stokes. And I believe this was around the time of Carl Stokes. Martin Luther King used to visit town to help Mr. Stokes' campaign. Jim Brown, all the athletes would help out because it was such a monumental thing to have someone like that lead a major American city. And so, and another fun fact about that, my mom, Bobbi Roquemore, was, in her own way as a teenager helping out, because they would have the teenagers watch the kids while the adults would register to vote. And so when I look at that picture, it just, makes me so proud to know that Cleveland was at the forefront of so many things in the civil rights movement, starting with that picture, Antoinette's dad, everything involved in that. And I was fortunate to attend the reception after the Cleveland Summit too, and meet Mr. Wooten. That was like a thrill of, one of my lives, one of my greatest thrills was be able to meet him personally.
And guys, we were talking earlier about Bobby, how these guys put their careers on the line. When you think of the perilous time that was in 1967, and a lot of the athletes of today are criticized for not being as active in the community, especially considering so many of these guys have made generational money, but some don't want to venture down that road. Do you think the black athlete has a special responsibility to his community, as opposed to a white white guy can just go and play in the major leagues for 20 years and go home? We have traditionally asked more of our athletes. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's times like this where, believe it or not, speaking out is very important. We'll start with the black athlete. For example, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, about 40 miles south of Milwaukee, there was a gentleman who was shot by the police, and it was just so much unrest. The Bucks really didn't want to play that day, and thank goodness we have people like Adam Silver who allow NBA athletes to really express themselves. I think that kind of goes back to the whole situation with Donald Sterling and hearing him just say things out loud. So thankfully, the NBA athletes are allowed to say a little bit more, maybe, than NFL athletes. But I must give credit, even in this current environment, Roger Goodell and the NFL, compared to the past current Trump administration, they've held the fort down, as far as, resisting the push to get rid of DEI. You haven't seen that with the NFL. And I must give credit to Mr. Goodell for allowing that to thrive. And as far as the black athlete, yes, I think in times of when things affect our community, it is great to speak out. But again, we have a current situation where two Americans were killed, and it affects all of us. So someone said, I went to college at Marquette University, so I still follow the Milwaukee newspapers, and someone said Tyrese Halliburton said something about the murders, and why does he care? I said, well, he cares because it's his community too. He's from the Fox Cities area, which is near Green Bay, which is where the gentleman, Mr. Preety, lives. So he cares too. We all care about our communities, and it's just great for the athletes to be able to, speak out and resist the temptation to not feel like they'll get canceled. And that's up to us to make sure they don't get canceled in the media as well, to stand out there and stick up for them.
Antoinette, how do you feel about that regarding the responsibilities of today's athletes, and as you counsel athletes today, does that ever come up? How far should I go in terms of stepping? Okay.
Yeah, it comes up a lot, especially in the W. They don't want to be fined. Two, I think that they do have a responsibility, if you will, to speak up, and especially as role models. If it's wrong, it's wrong, and if you have an opinion about it, but you say it in such a way that it's positive and that it can help and be just a positive move toward the right direction. Because athletes also can say something that is so negative, and it's just like, we don't need the rhetoric, we don't need the negativity, but I feel like if they can make a statement that is positive and that can make a difference, absolutely speak up. Absolutely.
JD, you probably feel
and
the same
another
way.
thing, they live in the community. Go ahead.
I
Was
think
someone about to say something?
Yeah,
They grow up in the community. They grow up in the communities, but sometimes they leave those communities.
The summit, I think one of the great things about it's history. A lot of people do not know, other than the picture, they don't know anything about the Cleveland Summit. And I think what we're trying to do will bring a lot of that into focus. I know one of the things Mr. Wooten wants to do, he wants every NFL team to have this, to show it to the players and to the staffs. Whenever he wants every NFL team to have a copy of it, to see it, because it's history. It's history a lot of people don't really know. And it is tied to the NFL because you got NFL players that are involved in it. And I think, to me, that's the most important thing with what we're trying to do from a historical perspective. We got to tell the stories. If we're not telling the stories, they're not going to get told.
That is correct.
Yeah, and tying the NFL into what you were just talking about, Jay, we had 10 NFL job openings this year. And I think 8 are filled, maybe 2 are left, and maybe just 1 left now. And so far, unless if you want to count Robert Saleh as a minority, there haven't been any black coaches hired. And I think the NFL is still struggling with that. Because you think about the NBA, brothers get hired and fired all the time. I don't know how many black coaches are in the NBA. Somebody get fired, oh well, but these jobs have come so few and far between in the NFL that your antenna is always up. And it goes all the way back to the Cleveland Summit. Surely all these things are what these men were fighting for, going all the way back then in 1967.
I always call John Harris our historian, and I call myself knowing certain coaches and the history and so forth.
It's because Jay's old.
I'll say John Harris wasn't.
Like me. No, I'm joking.
Where is Lovie Smith? Where is Ozzie Newsome? Where is such and such? So, John Harris, I will let you be the authoritative on this topic right here. I know the name certainly, but as far as their career path and so forth, I know where Leslie Frazier is right now. So up in Seattle. So
that's a name that should be in the hunt for a job as the assistant head coach in Seattle.
Absolutely.
They're in the Super Bowl. I don't know if I've read a story or heard anybody at all when you talk about who's potential candidates. I've not heard his name mentioned once. He was a former head coach in Minnesota, former player. I think he played on the Chicago Bears Super Bowl championship team. He was a defensive back. Yeah, and and it's been a great defensive coach. He was in Buffalo, and now in the second year, you hear a lot about Mike McDonald, the head coach, the young head coach, but a lot of that defense is directly associated with Leslie Frazier. Those are the things, and I think the media, we can chip away and keep talking about there's no black head coaches hired, but we need to get names like Leslie Frazier on those lists. So when they start talking about who are the candidates, I haven't heard his name mentioned as a possible candidate throughout the whole process, and I think that's a responsibility that the media has. It's their job to do that, to put it out.
Hey, when you guys came,
one of the things.
Oh, go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just one of the things of I kind of get some people upset because I have been a person that back my focus was college sports. Okay, so when I was a journalist, that was my main thing, was college sports, and I know the process of how you have to kind of start as a GA and kind of go up the chain and do this and do that. And so I saw a graphic of Nick Sirianni, started out in Mount Union in Ohio, grad assisted, did this, did that, gradually worked his way up. And so what I'm concerned about is the pipeline. So one of the things that I pointed out was that there were zero black offensive coordinators in the 2025 NFL season. The NFL has made it such that, excuse me?
No, go ahead. I'm
the
NFL
has made it that, that's what I'm saying, zero offensive coordinators. So even Mr. Frazier, Leslie Frazier, you said he was a defensive back. Vrabel has always had Terrell Williams. He had an illness, but he's always been his defensive coordinator in Tennessee. Of course, Weaver, I want to say, there are always, it seems like the defensive players go through that pipeline and do become coordinators. For some reason, I don't know why, but I think the part of the issue is to get more offensive people in the pipeline, because that is the way the NFL is going. Tony Dungy was a defensive coach. Back then you were a defensive coach. Bill Belichick was a defensive coach. It really didn't matter. But now it just seems like in this era, offensive coaches are favored. They're looking for the next Sean McVay per se.
Just gonna say that
even
they want the young
this is
wonder kid. Yep, the young wonder kid.
And fortunately, the Browns interviewed one of those young. He happened to be a black gentleman named Nate Shieldhouse. But I'm just saying that's the only one who was in that potential next Sean McVay category. Another thing that I noticed, in doing my own analysis, it just seems like with defensive players, they were a former player with the team, so there was familiarity with them. Because a lot of people don't want to hear this, but Mike Vrabel couldn't find a job last year. That's why he was a consultant with the Browns. Okay, so even Mike Vrabel couldn't find a job because he was a defensive guy. But of course, he came home to a familiar face. The Houston Texans with DeMeco Ryans, popular former player, defensive player. It really didn't matter whether it was offense or defense. Aaron Glenn with the Jets, another former popular, another popular player. So it seems like that's a way for defensive play, people to get in. But again, with the NFL making things so easy for offense and skewing towards offense, we need to get people in the offensive pipeline. Shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs for rehiring Eric Bieniemy. And hopefully this time around, he can get serious consideration for
Head coaching job.
A head coaching job, and then Mike McDaniel, depending on what happens.
I'm gonna go out on a limb.
And I was gonna say to you,
I'm going on the limb.
Go ahead, Jenny.
We need another Tony Dungy. People forget when Tony Dungy. Look at the black coaches that came under him: Mike Tomlin, Herm Edwards, Lovie Smith. They were all direct result of Tony Dungy. He was very outspoken during that time. We need another Tony Dungy. I'll go one step further. One of the things Mr. Wooten telling me about is he's disappointed. He says He said, listen. That's what he always tells me. Listen. He
Yes.
said, not only do we not have black offensive coordinators, he said, but none of the black head coaches have black offensive coordinators. So he said, sometimes we got to look within. One thing that Tony Dungy did, Tony Dungy, Dennis Green, Tony Dungy was his defensive coordinator. He had a black offensive coordinator. He had a black quarterback coach back in the 90s when almost his whole coaching staff was black. He had, Brian Billick was also on that tree, became a head coach. But Dennis Green purposely did these things to put them in positions to be successful. I think people can't be afraid to do that. I think if we need more black offensive coordinators, I think the onus is also on black head coaches, the few that are there, to put some offensive coordinators black offensive coordinators in that coaching pipeline, right?
Hey, I want to go back to the film. Now, Antoinette, did I hear you say is it 4 parts?
Yes, it's a 4-part series, actually. Four shows, 4 panels, if you will. But the show that you'll see in San Francisco during Super Bowl that we'll screen is a compilation, if you will, of all 4 shows, the best of the best.
Okay.
And we had different panels.
So
different panels. What were the panels? We had the first 3 were different panels. What, Antoinette? What were the panels that we did? Human dignity.
Human dignity. I'd have to look it up.
And we touched on. We had each panel dealt with that. The panelists dealt with that, and then the one that's going to be available next week is the actual Cleveland Summit. It tells the story of the Cleveland Summit, and it mixes all those elements from the previous 3 panels into it's an hour program. It's going to be eye-opening to people, how the whole thing came together, and hopefully it'll inspire athletes, NFL athletes in general, people in this country, regardless of color, especially what's going on in this country right now, to really, unite and really do what needs to be done out there as far as coming together and trying to put some positivity. All I hear is negativity these days. We need more positivity in this world.
On the picture, is that Mr. Wooten behind Kareem?
Yes, that's him.
Okay. And Willie Davis is in this picture, I believe. Johnny Mitchell, the wide receiver.
Bobby Mitchell, Bobby Mitchell. Curtis McClinton in the middle, in the back, played for Kansas City Chiefs. His daughter, Margot, was at the Cleveland Summit and, spoke on behalf of her father.
Yep.
And, another thing that came out of the Cleveland Summit was the Black Economic Union, which another unknown story of black businesses being created in Cleveland and around the country. Curtis McClinton, the Kansas City group, and with the Black Economic Union was the biggest and still exists today that, Margot talks about proudly. So many businesses were created off of that from 1967.
And Jim Brown he was formidable. The guy not only obviously on the football field, but off the field. I was reading the autobiography of Maurice White. Jim Brown was the guy that helped launch the career of the start of Earth, Wind, and Fire. He promoted their shows. He got them in venues that, who's Maurice White? No, nobody knows. Who's Jim Brown? Yeah, well, we know Jim Brown. So he was formidable in that regard. But I was going to ask, does anybody talk about the 1965 boycott of the AFL All-Star game? Maybe Curtis McClinton would have been in the AFL. Does that come up in this in the Cleveland Summit conversation?
Not in the Cleveland Summit conversation, but it'll probably be a part of in Mr. Wooten's documentary. it's very extensive. We really get into the AFL and how the AFL and the addition of black players from HBCUs really kind of forced the NFL's hand. And then you started seeing more black players from HBCUs in the NFL, but the AFL really got that started.
Absolutely. And if we can go back, and I can tell you the panels that we had at the Cleveland Summit. It was Soul of a Nation, Respect for Human Dignity, Improving Our Communities. The other panels were, Remembering the Cleveland Summit, Voices of Change, Passing the Torch, as well as today's the importance of social justice. And while you mentioned Margot McClinton, we also had Jim Brown's daughter, Kim Brown, to talk about what it was like as well. So
nice. That is outstanding. And that's February 6th. That's is that a Saturday?
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
What is February? Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put that back up there. And Antoinette, you're gonna send me that that QR code too, right?
Yes.
And I'll get it out here in case people out that way are interested in coming to that. Any final thoughts?
Well, we could talk about it all day, but I know there's some other topics we want to get to. But I saw Bobbi there. I know we want to get her take on the Browns head coaching move. I'm sure she has some strong opinions about that.
Yes, as usual, it's just never-ending news coming out of Cleveland. As we just mentioned, Nate Shieldhouse was one of the final candidates. He was a former Illinois quarterback, very highly thought of, just one of those people who they just knew was going to be a coach. He has worked at Iowa State under Matt Campbell. He also worked so he's the quote-unquote pass game coordinator with the Los Angeles Rams, which is, I guess, the next step below the offensive coordinator. And I believe he was 35 years old. And the Cleveland Browns have a great defense, but the offense is in serious need of repair. And so that was a focal point. At the same time, the architect of the great Cleveland defense is Jim Schwartz, former Detroit coach. Helped Detroit get out of that rut where it was the 0-16 and got them to the playoffs within 3 years. But his overall record was 29-54, and he hadn't really gotten another shot at a head coaching job. I was surprised that he was even interested, because from what I read, he wasn't going to be interested in a head coaching job. But then I guess as the actual opportunity got close.
Let me stop in, Bobbi, because you were coming in and out.
Okay.
Bobbi, hold on for just seconds. You were coming in and out. I didn't get the name, but before we do that, we want to say goodbye to Antoinette. She has to check out. Thank you so much for sharing the information about the Cleveland Summit too.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bobbi. Thank you, John. Thank you guys very much. And I'll make sure you guys get that information.
Okay. See ya.
Absolutely. Please. I want to come back. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Bobbi,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
You gave us a name, but it didn't come through. What was the name?
Shieldhouse. And it looks kind of, when you look at it, it's taking a lot of, it looks like Shieldhouse or something like that, but it's Nate Shieldhouse, former quarterback at University of Illinois, considered a great offensive mind under the quote unquote John McVay tree, and so that, he was a finalist. He was asked back for a second interview. Of course, we had to wait until the Rams lost the game to be able to interview him in person. Then you had Jim Schwartz. So we had the great, the architect to pretty much revive the defense, Myles Garrett ended up being the all-time sack leader behind him. He also coached up who we expect to be the offensive rookie of the year for defense, Carson Schlesinger. So that's been one of the most watchable things of the Cleveland Browns, despite the record, is the defense. And so, like I said, at first, I remember reading how Jim Schwartz maybe didn't want to be a coach again, head coach. But as it got closer, and he was considered a real candidate for the Browns job. And, it's kind of one of those things where he would, despite our quirks and things going on like that, he really wanted the job. And he was a finalist. He was invited for a second interview. But the final decision went to Todd Monken. The final, the Todd Monken ended up being the head coach. And everybody was shocked, including Jim Schwartz, because the quote-unquote unofficial plan was that Schwartz would stick around and be the defensive coordinator. And that, you would have these two great genius minds. But apparently, and I quote 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, where they say he stormed out of the building.
Uh-oh.
And that caught people by surprise. And so now it's like, oh, wow, we didn't realize this would, affect Jim Schwartz, because everybody was, okay, well, we'll take Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz can work with a young person. He'll work with Monken. They can, kind of have their own little worlds. But that apparently was not the case. And so that's been the biggest issue here around Cleveland is, oh boy, we may lose Jim Schwartz, who is still under contract for 2026.
Well, one mention about Shieldhouse, one of the quarterbacks he worked with in college apparently was the last player picked in one of the drafts, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy.
Let's let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He's one of the great offensive minds, but something must have happened during that second interview where they determined he wasn't ready yet.
Or he may have made some demands that they weren't willing to meet. Coming from the Rams, very sophisticated with the high tech, analytics, things that maybe the Rams do that other teams don't do. I know people in Pittsburgh, people are talking about that with the Steelers, that they're stuck on what they want to do. They don't really want to implement a lot of new stuff, new standards. So some of these new coaches, Fieldhouse was on that list, never got that far, but they were saying there might be concerns if they came in for interviews that they'd be saying, well, this is what we do with the Rams. And they're like, no, we don't do that here. So you never know. Obviously it wasn't a fit. And they went with and
again, I always cite 92.3 because here that's how I listen to. I feel like I'm in Cleveland, even though I'm not in Cleveland. And Cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot, Hall of Fame journalist. Those are the people who I rely on to get me this information, plus my own analysis of what I feel and see. And so it just seems like the Haslams will spare no expense. If he wanted a nice computer system or something like that, they would have made it, happen. I just think it also could have been a situation like Ben Johnson. Remember, I
want to jump in. No, go ahead.
Yeah, Ben Johnson turned down a team or two and then decided to wait until better opportunities came.
Okay.
Okay, I think something froze.
Yeah.
I
want us to hit this thing with Bill Belichick not going in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, and then I definitely want to get to our Tendex ratings before we get out of here. Because JD, I'm so glad you sent me the college basketball Tendex for this week, because hey man, we're heading into February. It'll be tournament time pretty soon. Yeah. So we help give people an idea of what to watch for. But were you guys surprised that Bill Belichick was not a first ballot Hall of Fame selection?
No, I don't. The new system. Apparently, there's a new system. I remember reading about this last year with this new system. And so they had one gentleman who came out, his name begins with a V, I guess he's a voter for one of the cities, and he said, I was more concerned about voting for LC Greenwood because I said, man, he may not ever get back on there. And he just knew Belichick was going to be on there. So I think it was, some miscommunication about how, everybody thought that Belichick, somebody else is voting for Belichick. So I just want to take care of Roger Craig. I want to take care of someone else who may not be on the list because Belichick, even if he doesn't get in there this year, he'll get in there next year. But like I said, somebody like LC Greenwood, this might be their last shot. So I think the whole thing about making people eligible in their first year is an issue because then it looks like they didn't get in on their first try. When players have to wait 5 years, I don't understand why coaches don't have to wait 5 years either.
That's a great point. And, was I surprised? Yes. Am I broken up over it? No. He's going to get in.
Hell no.
You know what I mean? Really. And what Bobby said about, some of these other players, you like to see him get in before they die. That type of thing. And he's going to be a Hall of Famer. If he's first ballot, okay, get it, just get over it. I think about Barry Bonds and Clemens, okay? So they did some things that were wrong and they're not in the Hall of Fame. Well, according to a lot of people, Bill Belichick did some things that were wrong. He was fine. They lost draft picks and money over it, right? Some of the Pittsburgh Steelers, when I was covering the team, they'd never gotten over that. They were convinced that the cheating was going on and it impacted some of the games. So I'm sure some of that's hurting him a little bit, but no one has said because he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer that he's not going to get in. He's going to get in. And I'm not.
He's going to get in.
Yeah.
Now, I have my theory on this. I think some of this was pettiness on some of the writers, because let's face it, Bill Belichick was an asshole to deal with the media on the Cleveland.
Rick, we know a lot of petty writers. We've all known a lot of petty sports writers.
And we know how petty sports writers can be.
Yes. Yes.
I know that. Maybe one vote, but I think sincerely people thought that other people were going to vote for him. And like I said, the one gentleman who went on record and said, that's what happened with me. I was more concerned about LC Greenwood because I didn't know if this would be his last shot. So I think that that may be one or two persons who did that. Also, something I read, I want to say he only won one playoff game outside of his New England tenure with Brady, and that was with the Cleveland Browns. And so maybe, outside of it, he was a great coach in New England, but he was also not a great coach for some periods too, so that may have a factor, in addition to maybe, like you said, the Scott Spygate and Deflategate and, not being kind to the media. I just don't think that affected enough votes.
I really think that's very possible. And all the years I spent covering teams, I know how petty some of these guys could be.
The 20-year-old girlfriend may not have helped. Maybe it shouldn't be, but maybe the 23-year-old girlfriend maybe didn't help the image. A whole bunch of things you could throw into the pot with that.
Why do you think Dick Allen they waited for him to die? Right?
People didn't like him. Philly, he went through hell in Philadelphia. I grew up in Philly. I watched him hit home runs at Connie Mack Stadium. He was he was never.
You think he was a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, he should. He should have been. He should have been able to enjoy it. He should have been able to experience that. His family should have been able to experience that with him. That's why I'm hell bent. One of the things with the documentary with John Wooten, we want John Wooten. If you look at his resume, we want him to get into the Hall of Fame. He's been up a couple times, but he's 89. We would love to see him get into the Hall of Fame. And the documentary was hopefully one part of that. But there's a lot of coaches and athletes out there that will never get that opportunity. That's the ultimate, right? The Hall of Fame, your recognition, not only for you, but for your family and your loved ones. It's a historical thing. And it's the talk right now. People will talk about it. It'll eventually die away. And, he'll get in next year or the year after that. Yeah.
He'll certainly get in next year. And if I had a vote, I would have voted him in this year.
I would have too. I had no problem with it. Yeah.
And maybe the Hall of Fame can go back to how it used to be, where contributor and coach or something like that is just voted on differently. I don't remember having this whole 3 out of 5, the veterans, the athlete, the contributors, and the coaches lumped into one vote. I just
Yeah.
don't remember it being like that. And maybe
I
we
don't
need
like
to go
that
back
at
to
all.
how it used.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah,
Man,
so I blame the system.
we only got a couple of minutes here, guys. Uh, Maybe we could just tackle just a little bit of the Tendex, JD, because I'm interested in how Tendex has these teams ranked compared to the Associated Press. Uh, Arizona is number one in the Associated Press. Michigan Wolverines are number one in Tendex. And Gonzaga is all the way down at 6 in the Associated Press, while they're number 2 in Tendex. And my goodness, Vanderbilt's getting a lot of love. That is surprising to me.
Yeah.
About Vandy.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early, and we're just getting to the conference. The ratings for the best teams is very high. They'll start going down. They'll start going down a little bit as they, playing in conference. Non-conference schedule, there's a lot of easy games, a lot of blowouts. You'll start seeing some of these ratings going down as they start going up against, like-minded opponents, teams that are familiar with them. It won't affect, maybe their standing, but it will affect their rating,
I think you sent me the top 5 players.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. It's not very high. The ratings are not that high right now. Basically, compared to last year's draft, just according to Tendex, it's not nearly as good as last year's draft. Last year's draft was much deeper. Of the top players, from what I've come across so far, it's very early. This very early sampling of it.
Yeah. Could a guy like Yunderword at Michigan?
His rating was not high. I was shocked right now. It's not that high.
But tell me this: does minutes hurt that? Because they were blowing so many people out before they hit conference that he probably wasn't playing 20 minutes a game because they were playing so many guys.
I think that probably but not really, because Tendex is not driven by minutes. It's your effectiveness. You could play smaller minutes if you're still effective. It shows. I just think that right now maybe he's playing more of a team-oriented situation where was the UAB last year. He was the main guy, was able to put up more numbers. Maybe in Michigan he has to hold back a little bit. It doesn't take away from his overall talent, but maybe his numbers just aren't. Obviously, he's effective. The team is very, very highly ranked. So he's having a definite positive impact on that. And I expect that rating to go up when we check back maybe in a few weeks on our next Tendex college rankings and see where he is.
Right. Yeah, there is a great disparity. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking, because I was like, where's BYU in Tendex? I mean, for whatever reason, I probably living in Big 12, had a Big 12 territory. Maybe I see some of their, but I'm like, wow.
A lot of these numbers are very close. I mean, Illinois is 116.8, Tennessee 116.7, Purdue one. So you can flip those teams. Their ranking is those rankings are very close. I mean, clearly Michigan, Gonzaga, Duke, those are the ones that have the highest ratings right now. Other than that, it's really pretty balanced. 118, 117, 116. There's not much of a difference once you get past maybe those top 4 or 5. Nebraska at number 4, 121.9. I mean, that's extremely high. I expect that rating to go down once they really get into the meat of their conference schedule.
But you know what? I actually saw them. I don't watch. It's too early for me to tune in to college basketball, but I did watch Nebraska a little bit the other night. Yeah. They are really good, man. I'm like, Nebraska. Yeah. Go ahead. They are really good. But a team I always keep an eye on is Houston and Coach Kelvin Sampson. Bobby, you probably know better than both of us how they do things down there with that team, Coach Sampson.
Yeah, one of the things I remember reading is, how they like to hire from within. They keep their assistant coaches or former players, and they just kind of build a culture, starting from when you step on the court to even when you're off the court afterwards. And so he's really revived his career here, and really got Houston as the premier team in the Big 12.
One last thing on Houston. I watched them play for the first time the other day against Texas Tech. They have a freshman point guard that's phenomenal scorer. I didn't see the same Houston team I've seen in the past. The Houston team I saw in the past was ferocious inside and on the boards. Offensive rebounds galore. They just had a real toughness. Now, some of those players have graduated. I don't see that as much. And I think it's when you start recruiting 5-star and 4-star players, it's like you sacrifice a little bit, right? And they had 3-star, 2-star guys that they were nasty inside. And they still have a couple of those guys, but that's the biggest. They're still a really good program. That's the biggest difference I know. They don't have that same inside defensive intensity that they had in previous years, but they can still win the whole thing.
We only got about 45 seconds here, but Marcus Sasser is currently on the Pistons roster. His third year. This brother can go, and he's not. The Pistons are. They got Kay Cunningham. He is bona fide. But everybody else is just really, really good. And they're deep. And Sasser can't even get on the court. I'm like, this dude. But when he does, he gets down, man. He came off the bench, had played 3 or 4 games, had 19 points the other night. I'm like, this dude. People keep talking about the Pistons not being able to shoot the ball. And that is a big concern of mine too. But they do a lot of other things very well. And the one thing about the Pistons, because they know they can't shoot, they don't shoot them. So they attack you in the paint. I think they lead the NBA in paint points, and they're second in overall defense. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out of the East. But right now, I don't think there's anybody in the East or in the league good enough to beat OKC. Maybe the Rockets.
I don't know about that. I don't know. The more I see them, they do have weaknesses, and they have an Achilles heel, which is called San Antonio right now. That's not a good matchup for them.
San Antonio can't beat nobody else.
I know. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, they lost to somebody the other night. I'm like, I can't think of who it was. I'm like, you're supposed to run over those teams. So San Antonio probably has some maturing to do, right?
Yes, very young.
They're getting up for OKC. But I saw Houston come into Detroit and beat the Pistons the other night. Very dangerous team. And those twins, Asar and Amon, my goodness. Them dudes got some athletic genes in them, man.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
But
it's
anyway,
been interesting to see.
We got to get out of here. We've actually gone over our time. Yeah, we've gone over our time. It was a great show. I want to thank Antoinette Brown for coming in and talking about the Cleveland Summit to get the guys together. That'll be next Friday out in San Francisco. And JD, if you give me that QR code,
I text you a code. I text you a code that you just sent. I just texted it to you.
I'll put it up. Okay, I'll put it up where people can get to it. But until then, for my great friends John Harris and Bobbi Roquemore, I'm Rickey Hampton. Take care, everybody.
See ya.